Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, 4 Israeli captives have returned from Gaza with a trail of destruction left behind.
Bodies scattered across every corner of Nuseirat refugee camp. Hundreds of victims of an Israeli operation to free captives held for months by Hamas.
Israeli officials call it a daring rescue. Much of the world calls it a massacre. I'm Kevin Hirten, and this is The Take. The Nuseirat refugee camp is in central Gaza, where people have been fleeing as Israel's attack on Rafah continues. More than 1 million people have fled north from there in recent weeks. On June 8th, the streets of Nuseirat were crowded when Israeli forces moved in.
Panic as Israel carries out massive strikes.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Palestinians fleeing as fear spreads.
Ya Rabbi, Ya Allah!
Backed by airstrikes, they engaged in intense gun battles with Hamas fighters. The raid rescued 4 Israeli captives, but killed hundreds of Palestinians in the process. And Abu Obaida, the spokesperson for Hamas's Al-Qassam brigades, said other captives were killed in the raid. Today in Gaza, hospitals are still overwhelmed, treating the hundreds of casualties, and we're getting a first-hand account of the situation.
My name is Hind Khoudary. I am a Palestinian journalist, and I'm currently in Deir al-Balah.
Can we just start with the basic facts? Just tell us what happened this weekend.
Okay, I will tell you what happened with me. So I was in Al-Aqsa Hospital reporting.
Israeli forces have been targeting areas around the Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah. Do you have any information about whether the building itself has been targeted or just the area around it?
Well, there's a house that was targeted close to Al-Aqsa Hospital, and we're talking about...
I was on a live shift for Al Jazeera, and suddenly a huge, massive explosion happened very close to the hospital, and everyone literally freaked out, running. But the thing was, on that night, we did not even sleep because the artillery shelling did not stop. It was like massive, continuous explosions all through the night. I remember at that day, I barely had a couple of hours of sleep, actually. And then this huge explosion happened. This was the minute all the ambulances started hurrying into Al-Aqsa Hospital in the emergency department. Ambulances coming one after another, very severe critical injuries. The explosions did not stop. We knew something's gonna happen or something is happening, but we do not know what. The only thing that we know is more people are coming from Nuseirat. And then we noticed that there was special forces going into getting 4 hostages. No one knew what was going on until more people from the heart of Nuseirat started coming as injuries when the civil defense teams were able to get them, and they started telling us what was happening. There was a completely connection blackout. No one was able to call anyone. I wasn't able to call my colleagues. I didn't know where anyone was, and it was a state of panic. And I think that this is one of the hardest days we lived. It's so bad, to be honest. I literally don't have any words to say.
Okay, so this is what was going on with you in this hospital, this chaos, this horror. I want to talk about how the rest of the world was processing this same story. The New York Times had a story this weekend called How Israel's Mission to Rescue 4 Hostages Unfolded. The lead paragraph is about how this operation got the final go-ahead minutes before it started. The second paragraph listed the names and the ages of the captives and mentioned that an Israeli police officer was killed in the raid. The third paragraph opens with this sentence: Scores of Palestinians, including women and children, were killed during the rescue operation. No names, no ages, just faceless masses. I wonder what your reaction is to hearing this as someone who's living and reporting in Gaza right now.
Well, it's not the first time they do this or write those headlines. It's always like this. Palestinians are always listed as numbers, or sometimes they're not even listed as numbers. As if we're ghosts or we do not even exist, as if we're like not even humans. We're used to this coverage. It's normal to dehumanize Palestinians in those articles and those headlines. And this is what Israel has been always doing since day one of this war.
Well, listen, we have a chance here talking to you to humanize this story, to de-anonymize some of the people killed in the crossfire. The floor is yours. Tell us a story. Give us the backstory of one of the lives that was cut short this weekend.
Okay, so I'll tell you a story. Yesterday, when I was in the hospital, when the internet was restored, a friend of mine who lives in Turkey starts calling and texting me, and he's like, Hind, my sister's husband is killed, and he's in the Al-Aqsa Hospital, and she can't find him. Can you go find him? Can you go help him? And I'm like, where? It's like sometimes you can't even recognize those people from the amount of harm of how those airstrikes targeted them. And I would like to mention that there are at least 2 families that were completely wiped off. The main reason why they were killed is the ambulances were not able to reach them. Do you know, like the civil defense team said that people were on the floor, they could not reach them because there were quadcopters that would not even let the civil defense teams to pick those people and rescue them, so they died because they were bleeding. Let's focus also on the people who were injured in the middle of this massacre. A man got his leg amputated in the middle of Al-Aqsa hallway without anesthetic, without painkillers, in front of all of us. And we started to comfort him, but the only thing we can do is hug him, you know? And I'm thinking about this man. I'm thinking, how is he feeling now? Is he still in pain? He witnessed this massacre. He was bleeding on the street and the civil defense teams picked him. There's a lot of stories. Every single day, I have my morning shifts in Al-Aqsa Hospital, and there's this corner beside the entrance, and you see women and men crying over their beloved ones. And I always hear them calling the names, always hear them telling them, why did you leave us? I wish I went there with you. And I witness every single day a farewell. Every single day I witness a last goodbye, and it's heartbreaking every single day, as if it's the first day, you know? And all of these stories have to be told. These Palestinians witnessing this genocide and should be honored and should be told, and their stories should spread among all of these Western outlets.
More after the break. Before we continue with Hind's story, there are reverberations of this raid playing out inside Israel as well. First, the rescue itself and the return home of 4 captives.
They were extracted by helicopter after special forces staged a daring daylight raid and have been reunited with their loved ones with no serious injuries.
Then the fallout. Many nations and international organizations have condemned Israel for the massacre in Nuseirat. Meanwhile, the rescue has done little to ease the political pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The day after the raid, Netanyahu lost a key ally, War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz. Al Jazeera's Sara Khairat told us the story from Amman.
Benny Gantz's resignation from the small war cabinet has come as no surprise. He no longer saw eye to eye with the man leading the war. He accused the prime minister of prioritizing his own political survival over Israel's security. And in fact, he, and I quote, said that Netanyahu prevents us from progressing to the real victory. And this is why he said he is leaving the cabinet. Now, after months of speculation, divisions in the war cabinet became very clear when Benny Gantz last month gave the Prime Minister an ultimatum. He put forward a 6-point plan, and he said that the Prime Minister had until June the 8th to agree to this post-war plan in Gaza that included bringing back the captives as soon as possible while getting rid of Hamas, and also to ensure that there would be some security coalition in the Gaza Strip, whether it was with international peacekeepers or whether it was a Palestinian entity. But he felt that this war was dragging on and continuing without a concrete plan.
Back in Gaza, Hind doesn't see the timing of this raid as a coincidence.
It doesn't really mean anything that it's on a Saturday or anything, you know? It's only was like a way to keep eyes away from anything, and they were trying to distract everyone else.
So anytime Israel is confronted with criticism, it seems very quick to blame Hamas, right? It's Hamas's fault that there's not a ceasefire. It's Hamas's fault because they keep captives in civilian areas. We know how precarious Netanyahu's support is in Israel. What about the other side? What can you tell us about Palestinians in Gaza's attitude towards Hamas at the moment?
Well, some people are angry. Some people believe that they have nothing to do with it. Like, I'm telling you all of how people we talk to. Some people are saying this is not related to Hamas because it has been happening since 1948 when Hamas didn't even exist. And most of the people are 100% sure that this is occupation. This is an Israeli occupation that came to destroy Palestinians and the Palestinian structure. And this is not the first aggression on the Gaza Strip. People in Gaza have been under blockade for more than 18 years now. They're fed up, they're helpless, and they're always blaming Palestinians. Like, every time they justify why they bombed something, they're like, because it's a Hamas base. We go to these places in the aftermath. We go and we visit and we report and we take videos and we take photos, and there's nothing related to Hamas. But this is how they justify their acts, is this is a military base. And not only that, people are saying like this is not related to Hamas because there are also ongoing settlements happening in the West Bank. There's also endless invasions in the West Bank. This is not related to Hamas. This is related to Israel. It's happening all over Palestine, and it's not only in Gaza.
Hind, what do you make of the end goal that the Israelis have set out here, this idea of destroying Hamas? I mean, A, do you think that that's possible? And B, what would you think would replace Hamas?
Well, to be honest, I don't really have an answer to this question. Like, I don't even think there are other people. They killed 35,000 Palestinians. They killed police officers. They killed doctors. They killed teachers. They killed children. They killed a lot of people. I don't know if there will be anyone able to rule or to be in charge in anything after this ends. We need years to think about these stuff. The last thing we think about is who's going to rule. Hamas is going to stay. We don't think like Israelis, you know? They think they're going to destroy them. That's their own thing. We don't care about it. All we think about is how are our days are going to back normal. How are we going to live our lives? Are we going to rebuild our homes? Or are we going to set up a tent on our home? And I'm thinking just like everyone else in the Gaza Strip. We're traumatized. We're very depressed. We lost a lot. There's a lot of grief and a lot of rage. And the only thing we want is to reunite in our homes that do not exist anymore and with our beloved ones. This is the only thing we think about. Like, the only thing I'm thinking about right now is my uncle that was killed in a Shifa operation, and I don't even know where he was buried. This is the thing I'm gonna think about after this ends, to search for my friend's graveyard, to my uncle's graveyard, to my cousin's graveyard. This is the only thing I'm thinking about. We need a lot of years to heal from everything we have been witnessing.
Wow. Okay, well, listen, Hind, thank you again for sharing these stories with our listeners, and I hope that you can get some sleep tonight at least.
I hope so. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
And that's The Take. This episode was produced by Khaled Soltan and Sarí el-Khalili, with Noor Wazwaz, Chloe K. Lee, Duha Mosaad, and me, Kevin Hirten, in for Malika Bilal. This episode was edited by Alexandra Locke. Our sound designer is Alex Roldan. Alexandra Locke is The Take's executive producer, and Ney Alvarez is Al Jazeera's head of audio. We'll be back.